I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
The presidential debates are over, setting up a final week of campaigning between Joe Biden and President Trump. This is your 2020 fix. Trump and Biden faced off for the last time in this campaign, and it was a lot more toned down, especially on Trump's part, than the first one.
You would have been much later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're not President. What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me, I take full responsibility.
But Trump has been unable, despite two very different debate performances so far, shake what has become a very static race, which is him behind nationally and in key swing states. Even though Trump's performance in this final debate was much more in line with what his strategists told him to do, and he even got a slip up out of Joe Biden on the oil industry.
And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind.
It's hard to see how this debate changes the race in any significant way. That's especially because 47 million Americans have already voted early, 11 days before the election. That's as much as everyone who voted early in 2016. The end of this debate sets up the final 10 days of campaigning, if you can believe it. And one thing we'll be watching for is whether either candidate changes their strategy they've had up until this point. For Trump, that means, does he continue doubling down on his base, or does he try to pull in any remaining swing voters that are out there, to the extent there are undecided voters?
Running against the worst candidate in the history of presidential politics puts pressure on me. Could you imagine if I lose my whole life? What am I going to do?
Polls have consistently shown for months now that President Trump is dragging in his re-election efforts, in part because voters blame him for not getting the pandemic and the economic crisis under control. That's why Biden's campaign to this date has been all about Trump and litigating how he's handled coronavirus and race relations.
Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as president of the United States of America.
Biden has also generally maintained a much lower profile to try to project a sense of being responsible about the coronavirus pandemic rather than holding big rallies. Does Biden continue that in these next 10 days, or does he try to get out in front of voters in a way he hasn't before? With every passing day, time is running out, especially for President Trump to close the gap with Joe Biden. His messaging is getting more and more scattered.
You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it.
Can Trump narrow in on a cohesive, coherent campaign message about why voters should re-elect him in these next few days? It's the only time he has to do it.